all steeply roofed and weathered in grays and burgundies and browns. I think that I am climbing up to another level now. It's very hard, and I'm a lazy 70s brat after all. But I understand something that up to now I've only had little glimmers of. I am still a paltry little painter nonetheless. I was looking at a close-up the other day of a Holbein painting, absolutely breathtaking work, no painting like it, except for Rembrandt's self-portraits, which I think is the finest portraiture the world will ever see. But I see my own little efforts, and a French painter friend of mine once told me that we must regard ourselves in the brilliant light cast by the old giants. I begin my training and development at the point of modernism, as it was imported into the New World, so I am raw and untrained and will never adequately compensate for that. The effects I try for have been achieved by artists since the 50s, and I am doing nothing new. But it feels as though I'm getting a certain quality in the work more consistently now. And, I have to clear the eyes, and it has to do with this balance between form and idea, the shapes, colors, and brushstrokes, and motif. I love that word. Van Gogh used it all the time. They all did. It's so out of fashion now. I'm going back to the paint box now. Nice talking to you. And her paint box was the porch in her house. But the lighting was good. And she could smoke in there and have lots of coffee and paint. So I guess as a sibling, she was one of 6, and I was thinking she was just more fiery, more theatrical, more dramatic, spiced up our sibling group in a way none of us can do, because and she was the one. She stomped her foot if she was angry, and she'd scream, and she'd swear if she wanted to, and she shook us out of our reservedness, and she was so good for us. And so I know we all loved her, and we will miss her. And that's all I have to say. So I would like to invite anyone who wants to say a few words. And I know one person who does. Dawn.
For those of you that don't know me, I'm Don Gates, first cousin to Ina on her mother's side. So my mother and Mary were sisters. I want to talk a little bit about Ina's early years. I don't have 100% memory, but over the years it's been embellished, a couple of stories that show Ina's independent and free spirit, which carried her throughout her life. After young Mary was born, Ina came for an extended stay. My mother, and Eugene to you. I was 3.5, she was 2.5. We're a year and 2 weeks apart. During this visit, little sidetrack, and you kind of touched on it, and Aunt Mary told me in all seriousness, my mother wanted to keep Ina. She thought it very unfair. She had 3 boys, no girls, and now Aunt Mary had 2 girls. Only needed 1. Barb, I'm sorry, but you weren't even in the picture for a few years yet. Anyway, she came to stay with us. We lived in Virden, Manitoba. My father was a bank manager, Commerce Banks, and we lived above the bank. And there was a backyard fenced in that Ina and I would play in. And we were playing in the sandbox. We had a couple of spoons. And Ina said, let's throw those spoons down that chute. It was an old coal chute covered with a grate. So we did. We threw those spoons down. We didn't need more spoons. Well, let's get some more. So we snuck up to the kitchen and took every spoon out of the drawer and dropped every one of them down the grate. And my father was not very happy because he's the one that had to go down and get every one of those spoons. But Ina thought it was a great idea, and I guess it was. I'm blaming this all on Ina, by the way. The other story, in the same time frame when she was in Virden, again playing in the yard, my dad got a call. He was downstairs at work from one of the businesses down the street. He said, "Keith, I just saw a young blonde girl and Donnie running down Main Street." He said, "What?" So he phoned up to Mom and said, "Where are the kids?" He said, "Well, they're out in the yard. I just saw them." "Check again," he said. She looked out and the gate was open. We had escaped. And sure enough, we were running down the street, not the sidewalk, the middle of Main Street, Virden, Manitoba. Not a busy place, but so my dad had to come out and get us. But Ina always lived her life out. Free spirit, didn't care what happened. And I admired her for it, because I certainly didn't. I wanted to have a plan all the time and know what I was doing. But it stayed with her her entire life. Unfortunately, her life was far too short. I was not deeply saddened when I learned of Ina's passing, but ultimately I know she's at peace, and God is with her. Thanks.